We don't read and write poetry because it is cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
In the grand scheme of life, we are often told to chase success, to achieve, and to accomplish. But life is not just about victories, it's also about experiencing failure, joy, longing, and everything in between.
This is where poetry comes in. It exists not to help solve life, but to help us feel it, to live it.
Today, we'll walk through this journey with our fellow IITians, asking what poetry means to them. Then, we'll travel through time to explore the many forms poetry has taken across history. We will also have a message coming from a local poet here in Iligan City that will talk about his take on poetry.
Join us as we discuss poetry and understand what it means for us.
Okay, my name is Jamero. I am currently a sixth year from the program of BA Panitikan.
Okay, thank you po. So, our first question is, what is poetry for you?
Okay, poetry for me is malalaman natin kung ano ang tula is kapag may sukat ito at may tugma. At saka yung poetry as malikhain, saka hindi madaling maintindihan. Kaya kailangan ito ng matinding pag-iisip at nakadepende din ito sa feelings o environment.
Hello, my name is Charlene Jasa. I am a third year student from BA Panitikan. Okay, poetry or tula. Ang tula para sa akin ay isang uri ng sining kung saan sinasalamin ito kung ano ay yung damdamin sa napakamasining na paraan. Bagamat maikli lamang ito, ngunit may dala itong lalim. Depende na lang kung paano mo ito sinulat.
My name is Lloyd Vincent C. Daryada. I am a faculty member from Department of Filipino and Panitikan. Poetry is something that reflects the personality of the persona of the writer, as well as it also encapsulates the experiences, the thoughts and emotions of the particular writer, as well as it gives us uplifting the things happening in our society right now.
Sumusulat ako ng tula kasi importante ito sa akin kasi isa akong taong mahilig sumulat, hindi lang tula kundi kwento dahil nakaangko din to sa aking programa na panitikan o literature kaya din kinuha ko ang aking program dahil dito. For me, sumusulat ako ng tula dahil isa itong form of way to express your feelings. Masarap kasi sa pakiramdam kapag nakatanggap ka ng tula galing sa mahal mo, hindi kaya't masarap sa feelings na nagbibigay ka ng tula para ma-express yung feelings mo.
Personally, sumusulat ako ng mga tula upang maipahayag ang aking damdamin sa masining na paraan. Hindi kasi lahat ng tao kaya nila ipahayag ang kanilang damdamin through verbally. Sa akin kasi, naipapahayag ko siya sa gamit ng mga titik at mga letra. Ito yung nagsisilbi kong boses para maipahayag ko kung ano ang aking nararamdaman, ngunit sa masining din na paraan.
You write poetry, basically others say to express our thoughts and emotion and feelings, but for me, we write poetry because we want everyone to see the reality. Through poetry, we ought to comprehend the things happening in the surrounding, as well as through words, we express different situations also, as well as through words, we apprehend the things that we want to understand in the society.
Good day, everyone. I am Jamero, and this is Flores. And today we are honored to meet and learn from one of Iligan City's pride in the field of art.
Maayong adlaw sa tanan.
Here in Iligan, creativity flows as richly as our waterfalls,
And among those who carry that spirit is Professor Lord Crisol.
Hello, my name is Sir Lord Gregory Crisol. I'm a faculty member of English Department, born and raised here in Iligan City for more than 30 years. You may find my works in various literary anthologies like The Kinaiya Makabagong Boses ng mga LGBTQ published by UP Press, Bisaya Magazine. We also have Ingawat Takos, and I also have in the Beyond Binary magazine. And yeah, you may check my works there. And aside from that, I've had trainings somewhat in national workshops like in the Amelia La Peña Bonifacio National Workshop, as well as the IAS LaSalle National Writers Workshop. And I'm very grateful to share, somewhat impart knowledge to anyone listening today, so that I hope you will take inspiration, because I hope that we would be able to nurture the future generation of writers and hopeful writers. I actually started really recently during the pandemic season, like 2023. So I'm still like really new to this poetry thing. But prior to that, I've already been teaching literature. So with my background in literature, and I've helped organize like literary events. So I've learned a lot from the experts through listening to them. So with that background in teaching, plus the learning I got from the teachers and from everything that I've read during 2023, I needed to find an outlet for creative expression. That's how I found poetry. And as of now, I'm not really that super sure if this will be like a lifelong if this will be a lifelong passion. But for now, I really enjoyed it, and I do hope that I would see myself still writing even after many years from now.
Ancient period. Let's begin where storytelling began, through the sweeping grandeur of epics. Do you know that the Epic of Gilgamesh tells the journey of a mighty but arrogant king, Gilgamesh, who abuses his power until the gods send him a wild equal, Enkidu, to challenge and humanize him. After becoming close friends, they undertake heroic quest, defy the gods, and ultimately face the tragic death of Enkidu. This loss drives Gilgamesh into a deep fear of death, leading him on a quest for immortality. Along the way, he learns that eternal life is not for mortals. Instead, he discovers that human legacy, through wisdom, friendship, and works we leave behind, is the true path to meaning and a form of immortality. Classical Greco Roman period. In the Greco Roman tradition, poetry reached majestic heights through epics, grand sweeping tales that shaped civilization's earliest ideals. Homer's The Iliad captured the rage of Achilles and the tragedy of the Trojan War, blending honor, fate, and divine intervention. Meanwhile, the Odyssey chronicled Odysseus' perilous journey home, revealing the timeless struggle between man and the unknown.
First of all, I would like to believe that reading plays a really important part in this craft, because I believe that I cannot give what I do not have. So when I write, I prefer solitude. Like, I don't like to be in like so many people around when I'm writing. And I try to reconcile like creative differences by um, I try to anchor myself somewhere, and I try to anchor it on my advocacy, because my advocacy is really more of like giving voice to queer experience. Especially there is a lack of voice of queer experience, especially in Cebuano writing. So I'm trying to really push for that. And if there are other forms of writers and there are other techniques, I anchor myself there, writing in Cebuano, writing about the queer experience, and really enriching myself by reading lots of books related to this. And yeah, joining workshops, joining training so that I would really improve in this particular craft.
Medieval period. Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy guided readers through the realms of hell, purgatory, and heaven, a spiritual odyssey shaped by Christian belief. In this era, poetry was both myth and message, bridging the earthly and the eternal. Here's a stanza from the Divine Comedy. Hell or the Inferno, Canto 1. In the midway of this our mortal life, I found me in a gloomy wood astray, gone from the path direct and in to tell. It were no easy task, how savage wild, that forest, how robust and rough its growth, which to remember only, my dismay, renews, in bitterness not far from death. Yet to discourse of what there good befell, all else will I relate discovered there. How first I entered it I scarce can say, such sleepy dullness in that instant weighed my senses down, when the true path I left. But when a mountain's foot I reached, where closed the valley that had pierced my heart with dread, I looked aloft and saw his shoulders broad, already vested with that planet's beam, who leads all wanderers safe through every way.
Renaissance period. The Renaissance revived the human spirit, and poetry responded with elegance, form, and emotional depth. The sonnet A 14-line poem flourished as the perfect vessel for love, reflection, and humanism. We will read a Shakespearean sonnet. Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when its alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark, that looks on tempest, and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark, whose words unknown, although his heights to be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks, within his bending sickles, compels calm. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me prove, I never read, nor no man ever loved.
Yeah. It's actually still a very big conversation because usually those that make it to that, especially that we have like limited time for one semester, I don't think we can really cover all. So those that make it to the academy, really those are like the best of the best. So usually the newer voices, I think many students are not quite familiar, especially the local voices. Like for example, are you familiar? I'm not sure if you're familiar, let's say with Adonis Durado or um, January Yap, names like that. These are Cebuano writers, and I'm not sure if they are being taken up because they are the local voices and they are really not the mainstream ones yet. So I think there is still really more to be done regarding this. And what can be done? Me personally, probably since I'm also teaching it, I can probably start also with my classroom, share it also to fellow literature teacher that next time if we choose selections, maybe we should also give a chance to Cebuano voices, local voices, and newer voices because it's pretty dominated by the more established voices, the award-winning ones, as well as those the established ones, and those that are kind of they that have already been taken up even until before. So yeah, I think change can happen as long as, but for now I I don't see that change yet, but I hope so through these little steps that we're doing as teachers.
Neoclassical period. In the age of reason and refinement, poetry took on a sharper edge. Satire became the voice of intellect and irony. Alexander Pope's the rape of the lockmark society's vanities in elegant verse. John Dryden and Oliver Goldsmith expose political follies and human flaws with biting humor. Even John Milton, best known for Paradise Lost, reflected the era's moral clarity and structured elegance. In this time, poetry held a mirror to society, not just to admire, but to correct. Here's an excerpt from Mark Flecknoe, 1678, by John Dryden. A satire upon the true blue Protestant, poet Thomas Shadwell. All human things are subject to decay, and when fate summons, monarchs must obey. This Flecknoe found, who like Augustus, young, was called to empire, and had governed long. In prose and verse was owned without dispute, through all the realms of nonsense absolute. Romantic period. The Romantic era gave rise to lyric poetry, short, expressive verses that explored nature, emotion, and human soul. Poets like Percy Bysshe Shelley, William Wordsworth, and Lord Byron captured the beauty of solitude, the power of imagination, and the awe of the natural world. In their verses, feeling was truth, and the personal became universal. Here is an excerpt by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretch in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance.
Wow, that's such a big question. I'm not even sure if Iligan knows me yet. So, hmm, how can I impact that? I think, yeah, I think we're making strides. Like, for example, we have organizations right now, like IPAG, we have the Mindanao Cultural Group, we have the Hulma. They are really trying to make Iligan a creative city. But as to like me, my craft, I don't think that they're taking up my craft yet because their focus is really more of theater, visual art. So regarding the literary scene in Iligan, we have famous names here in Iligan writers. Sir Ralph Galan, Sir Aimee Anlim. These are queer writers that are famous. Or if not queer writing, we have Anthony Tan, Sir Thibaut Fernandez, si Sir Herman Herbacio, Ma'am Ortega. These are names that I think are making an impact not just in Iligan but in the Philippines. But for me, I hope I get there. I hope I get to their level. But I was also I was able to really get many learning and training from them. They are my inspiration because their works are, yeah, I look up to their works, and usually when I write, I go back to their works, and hopefully um I create more outputs, and maybe Iligan City would be able to notice that. But for now, not there yet. But we have writers who are making their impact already to Iligan City.
Victorian period. The Victorians told stories again, but this time with moral questioning, emotional depth, and psychological insight. Narrative poetry flourished in works like Alfred Lord Tennyson's Idylls of the King, which reimagined Arthurian legends with Victorian ideals. Matthew Arnold Sorab and Rustum drew on epic tragedy, while Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh wove a woman's life into a poetic novel of ambition and love. Here's Aurora Leigh's first book, first stanza. Of writing many books, there is no end. And I, who have written much in prose and verse for others' uses while write now for mine, will write my story for my better self, as when you paint your portrait for a friend, who keeps it in a drawer and looks at it long after he has ceased to love you, just to hold together what he was and is. Modern poetry. In the early 20th century, poetry shattered old rules. Free verse emerged, abandoning traditional rhyme and meter. T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, Ezra Pound's Imagism, and W.B. Yeats' symbolic style challenged readers to find meaning in fragmentation. Here's Gerontion first stanza. Thou hast nor youth nor age, but as it were an after dinner sleep, dreaming of both. Here I am, an old man in a dry month, being read to by a boy waiting for rain. I was neither at the hot gates, nor fought in the warm rain, nor knee deep in the salt marsh, having a cutlass. Beaten by flies forth, my house is a decayed house, and the Jew squats on the window sill. The owner, spawned in some estaminet of Antwerp, blistered in Brussels, patched and peeled in London. The goat coughed at night in the field overhead. Rocks moss, stone crop, iron merds. The woman keeps the kitchen, makes tea, sneezes at evening, poking the feverish gutter.
Mm. Young aspiring writers, um, to live is to write, and to write is to live. So as much as possible, experience life, write about it, and then once you start writing about it, you actually start living your truth. Aside from that, read and read a lot, because you cannot give what you do not have. Before, I like writing, but it was not anchored on any reading. So I think my writings before were very amateur, but now that somehow I've been exposed to good stories, literature, and all, somehow I was able to carry that in my craft. So if you're an aspiring writer, start there. Read, because you cannot give what you didn't have, and anchor yourself to something. What are you writing for? What are you writing about? Okay, maybe you could go there, because if you have that, for example, advocacy or passion, I think writing will be a very powerful tool to um, resonate or amplify your voice. Like, for example, me, my advocacy is queer writing. So when I write, I really make it a point that I insert the queer agenda there, and then yes, that is where I anchor my writing. So those three: anchor your writing to advocacy, read and read a lot, and yeah, try to do your best and enhance your skill, get as many learning and training as possible.
Postmodern poetry. And finally, in a world of rapid change and rebellion, came the rise of confessional poetry. Postmodern poets broke down the final walls, turning inward to reveal their most intimate truths. Postmodern poetry broke all boundaries. Some turned inward in confession, like Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. Others, like Beth poet Allen Ginsberg, channeled rebellion and raw truth into verse. Here's an excerpt from Hold by Allen Ginsberg, stanza 1. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving hysterical naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo in the machinery of night. Who, poverty, and tatters and hollow-eyed and high sat up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats floating across the tops of cities contemplating jazz. Poetry in the 21st century. And now, we arrive at the present where poetry is everywhere. In the 21st century, poems live not just in books but on screens, on stages, and in our daily scroll. Spoken word artists bring verses to life in slam competitions. Social media poets like Rupi Kaur, Langleaf, and Ocean Vuong use brevity and emotion to reach millions. Themes of identity, mental health, love, and resistance echo in reels, tweets, and open mics. Today's poetry is global, accessible, and deeply personal, proving that the poetic voice is not only alive but louder than ever. Here's Nikita Hill's 93% Stardust. We have calcium in our bones, iron in our veins, carbon in our souls, and nitrogen in our brains. 93% Stardust, with souls made of flames, we are all just stars that have people names.